and on Instagram at WCEG _talk _radio and at WCEG Network. Last but not least, the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Good evening again. As I said, I'm DrCassandra Wanzo. Welcome to Mind Matters, where we discuss relevant mental health issues. I've been practicing psychiatry in Atlanta for the past 29 years. Our co-host is Officer Paul DesVignes, who has more than 20 years experience in law enforcement. Hi, Paul. Uh-oh, you're muted. We're affectionately known as the Doc and the Cop. Our guest co-host, Paul, are you?
I am here. Hi, Doc. How are you?
Paul, okay.
Hey, Norm. How's it going?
Hey, how are you? How are you? Doing fine, thank you.
Our guest co-host is Norman Carter Jr. Norm is a retired Philadelphia police corporal who's written a very informative book, The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop. It is available on Amazon. Today is the last day of Amazon Prime. He also hosts his own show on WCEG titled Issues and Answers on Monday. Welcome back, and hi, Norm.
Hello, thank you, doctor.
So our topic this evening is one I've been waiting to do for a long time. Our topic is the psychology behind Trump and his supporters. Let me repeat, the psychology behind Trump and his supporters. So this is a very interesting topic. We're going to devote 2 shows to it. So tonight we're going to focus on him. I won't say his name anymore. And the next show will focus on his supporters. Oh, I guess I have to say his name because I'm quoting from a book. Okay, here's the quote. Donald Trump is a profound danger to Americans and to the rest of the world. He will remain a profound danger until he is no longer president. This danger is clearly the result from Trump's serious mental impairments. I'm gonna read this again. Donald Trump is a profound danger to Americans and to the rest of the world. He will remain a profound danger until he is no longer president, since the danger clearly results from Trump's serious mental impairments. This is the opening line in a book titled The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. That's the opening sentence. This book was written by 37 psychiatrists and mental health specialists from well-known top medical institutions. In 1973, the American Psychiatric Association enacted what's commonly known as the Goldwater Rule, which prohibits mental health professionals from diagnosing a public health figure without formal clinical evaluation. However, in the wake of Donald Trump's election, these 37 psychiatrists and psychologists abandoned this rule. They argue it's their duty to warn. In psychiatry, if someone is going to harm a person, you have it's called the Tarsoff rule, a duty to warn. So they felt the duty to warn superseded the Goldwater rule. So they felt it was a duty to warn the world and the public in response to Trump's behavior. So they wrote this book, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. It's about this thick. They also state in the book, the leader of the free world has proven time and time again that he's unfit for duty. They determined that he's mentally incapable of serving as president because of several personality factors, behaviors that he suffers. The main one is he suffers from pathologic narcissistic personality disorder. In some of the statements he said, I alone can fix it. I know more about ISIS than the generals, believe me, and on and on. He's made so many statements. So basically a narcissistic personality disorder, they have a grandiose sense of self-importance. They're preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited power. They believe they're special and unique. They require excessive admiration. They have a sense of entitlement. They expect that everything, that they deserve everything. They are exploitive. They take advantage of others to their own ends. They lack empathy for the feelings and needs of others, and they show arrogant, haughty behaviors and attitudes. Does that sound like anybody? I mean, so this book is really thick. I'm just going to cover a few of the other things that they suggest. They said he has delusional beliefs. He exhibits hedonism. He lives in the present moment, pleasure seeking. He avoids pain. He has little or no thought to the future or the consequences of his actions. He's impulsive. Just look at some of the tweets he makes. He dehumanizes people. So he has a propensity to dehumanize others. Like, for instance, when he made fun, remember that disabled reporter that he mocked and made fun? That's characteristic of him dehumanizing people. They described him as a serial liar. There was one statement that he made about how he watched when the World Trade Center was coming down during 9/11. He watched thousands of people cheering. That didn't happen. That was a lie, but they say he's a serial liar. He exhibits misogyny. Like, one of the statements he made is about women. He said, you have to treat them like shit. That was the actual quote he made in 1992. And then one of the most famous quotes he made, when you're a star, they let you do it. Grab him by the, I don't know if I can say that on air, but you know, by the female genitalia. So you can do anything. He also made a statement about his daughter's body. And if he wasn't her father, he'd be dating her. I mean, those kind of statements. He's paranoid. Here's a statement he made about his, that exhibits his paranoia. This is what the actual statement he said. The world is a vicious and brutal place. It is a cruel world, and people are ruthless. They act nice to your face. They're out to kill you. Even your friends are out to get you. They want your job. They want your house. They want your money. They want your wife. They even want your dog. And these are your friends.
Wow.
Wow,
Do they want my bills too? I'd be happy to share those.
Two other traits I'm just going to discuss and then open it to discussion. One is that he's a racist, which we well know. He's made several statements, like when Omarosa, who used to work for him, in the housewife in the White House, he called her a lowlife and a dog. He actually said that he called her a lowlife and a dog, Omarosa. As you know, with all Black women, he's made condescending remarks, calling, low IQ individual. And it's only to Black women that he's really said those types of condescending remarks, although he did talk about Rosie O'Donnell and her appearance. Here's some other statements he made. He called NFL players sons of bitches. He said, why are we allowing all these people from shithole countries? And he was referring to like Africa to come here. He said, look at my African-American over here. Look at him.
Right. This
is something he said in 1991. Laziness is the trait in Blacks. I really believe that. And then about Mexicans, he said they're rapists. He said some of them I assume are good people. And then the last one of the whole book is full of traits that they have, but another prominent issue that they described in him is his sociopathy. This is a person who cons, lies, cheats to get what they want. And so I'm not gonna go through all the traits, I'm gonna go through some of the traits of sociopathy. They said he has severe sociopathic traits. He's manipulative. He lacks empathy. He has an absence of guilt. He intentionally manipulates people. He sadistically harms others. He bullies, and he's very charming. Those are just some of the traits. And usually those sociopathic traits are the traits that you find in criminals. So these are all the reasons they say he's unfit. This is like 37 mental health professionals who wrote this book this thick saying that he's unfit. Wow, so many reactions.
Yeah, you said a mouthful.
Yes.
It just reminds me, in keeping with what you said, yesterday, he made a speech before senior citizens and in Florida. And when you listen to the speech, he sounded like Jim Jones telling the people to drink the Kool-Aid.
What did he say?
This is where he was telling the people that, asking who had the virus and telling them that they're immune.
Wow.
And, you know, I'm immune, you're immune. And, you know, if I could, I'd come down and kiss all of you. I'd kiss the women, I'd kiss the men. This is pathological behavior. And it's funny, not funny, but if you remember the month he was elected, the congresswoman from California she was the first to say that there was something mentally wrong with him.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, and she at that time she said that Article 25 should be invoked, and that was talked about for about 2 months, and then it sort of died down, and now it not only has raised its head in that book, but if you just make a cursory observation of his behavior, it's anyone is displaying those traits, some of which are brutal, would be considered for commitment to some sort of program, mental health program.
Narcissism, sociopathy, lying, racism, misogyny. I mean, this is someone who's occupying the White House. It's just unbelievable.
Yes. That would make him multi-talented.
So pause. You haven't said anything.
I'm listening to you, Norm. And as I'm listening to you guys, I got to tell you, I see history repeating itself. 1930, Germany became Nazi Germany.
I was going there.
you know, this is where my interest, personal interest, you know, my whole academic life, I was a history major. That is my true love, history. And when I saw the rise of Adolf Hitler, and I saw how Germany was in such disarray after the First World War, and Adolf Hitler promised them, I'm going to restore national pride. I'm going to restore the Aryan nation. I'm going to restore the economy. I'm going to restore Germany's place among the great nations of this world. Even the most intelligent people, the most cultured, you know, the Van Roffens and all the aristocrats of the German society fell behind this lowly corporal in the German army. How did someone at the little bottom of German society rise up to the very top? I see the same traits and the same fanatical promises and devious method of capturing the so-called national pride of Americans that Adolf Hitler did with Germans. And they did it in such a methodical way that first you had to eliminate all your competition within your borders. Then you started telling the people, some people like to use the term brainwash. I don't use that. Basic said, listen, if you want to be a world power again, you're going to have to fight for it. First, we're going to eradicate everything that's home that's held us back, starting with the Jews and everyone else who's not of Aryan descent. And it amazed me, a man who did not fit the ideal Aryan prototype, or should I say stereotype, but yet he commanded those who did. Amazing.
Yep.
I see the same thing with Donald Trump. It's a very amazing do as I say, not as I do type mentality.
Right.
Yet you have very prominent, intelligent people, and we all think his supporters are the lowest ones or they dumb. No, he has very prominent people with deep pockets following him. Same as Adolf Hitler. At the end of the day, to me, history is repeating itself. And Donald Trump is a modern day incarnation of Adolf Hitler.
Who was it? His wife, ex-wife said he had a copy of Mein Kampf by the bed. That's what she said. He had his ex-wife Ivana said he had a copy of Mein Kampf next to the bed.
I'll be honest with you. I have copies of it as well because no, you got to understand.
What?
One of the things, it's like every autobiography of every gangster, every criminal. I have. Why? Because you will never defeat an enemy you don't know.
Okay.
Reading allows you to understand their mentality, their ideology, that they would not stop at any length, whatever it takes. And when you have a sitting president in the 21st century say, if I'm not reelected, this country is going to go into civil war and prepare for war. And you have militias now who think you can honestly kidnap the governor, a sitting governor, and really think that you have a green light to create the kind of anarchy that we see in movies. But this is real, people. This is happening. Come on, Norm, help me here.
Yeah, well, he gave them the order when he said, stand back and stand by.
Yes.
And another thing, in line with what you're saying, and I hope we're not going to get off track, but I put out I reposted a news article that was originally printed July 19th, 2016, where a Holocaust survivor who had been involved in searching out Nazis and whatever, and he has a long reputation for that. But what he said was that a lot of the Nazis repatriated into the United States, and that they looked for a political party to settle in, and they settled in the Republican Party. So when you have people like Stephen Miller, who actually pulls the strings of Donald Trump, people need to be very watchful of this man. And what's odd about this is that his parents were immigrant Jews, which is odd. But he pulls Donald Trump's strings, and he is an evil man. But as Paul was saying, and my wife says it all the time, Hitler had his facilitators, just as Donald Trump has his facilitators. They know that there's mentally something deficient with him, but what he is, and is a beacon for people who think like them, and he is their conduit to power.
So you think they really acknowledge his mental?
Of course they do. Okay. Yes, they would have to, and they play on that. And you know that's easily done for people who are narcissistic. You just keep massaging them.
Yes, that's what Putin does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if you notice, he always, when he talked about the what is not, I want to say Al-Anon, but that's not their name. But it's this new group out there that talks about the deep state. When QAnon. When he talks about them, he says, "Well, all I know is that they like me." Yes. When he talks about Putin, and he talks about the leader of Korea, he always says, "Well, they like me, and we get along well." That's that adulation that he needs, and this is how they pull his strings.
They are one and the same.
Yes.
I want to look at it. They're one and the same. At this point in the game, it's important people to realize history does repeat itself.
Yes.
And we are seeing this live in action. They say the revolution will not be televised.
It's televised.
And this is where the term evil prevails when good men sit by and do nothing.
Hey, that's on my business card.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Edmund Burke. Yes.
We are at that point in American history, which could easily become a major catalyst for world history if we actually see another conflict on the level of the Second World War. Keep this in mind. We have lost allies on both sides of the fence. At what point do we stop and say we have degress and not progress?
The statement that one of you were making about these guys planning to kidnap the governor of Tennessee, yes, he's emboldened domestic terrorists. And in the book, they even have a chapter where they call it the Trump effect. And that's what they're calling the Trump effect. His tendency to embolden terrorists, to embolden bullying, racial discrimination, like the reason that they've burned down mosques, they've said they've desecrated Jewish cemeteries, they've harassed immigrant children, African-American children are being bullied. All of this, they're saying, is the Trump effect.
And we just had, don't forget, we just had 2 churches burned in Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Last week. Was it last week? Yes.
Okay, I missed that.
I think one is in South Fulton County, or either both of them are in South Fulton
These
County.
Black churches?
Yes.
Okay, so all of this they're calling the Trump effect. And
Yes.
the Southern Law Poverty Center has documented and said, all these are the effect of Trump, the Trump effect. All this bullying carried to mass level against people of color, immigrants, people that are different. And it's all because of him. Like when he made that statement, as of today, something about I will stop some of the Muslim ban that he made. I mean, Muslim bans, everything that he does, it's just the racism and find people on both sides, so they feel emboldened. And that's what they're calling the Trump effect. That is a real thing, a real phenomenon.
And I'm a little leery of using terms like that.
Well, they're saying they've studied it. They've studied it. It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
But see, the Trump effect, I tell people all the time, long after Trump is gone, and long before Trump got to where he at, that mentality was hit there. This is nothing.
No, Paul. No, it's increased the number of hate crimes. All of those have increased under him, and that's what they're calling the Trump effect.
Because
they increased under him.
They finally have a figurehead that's saying in a powerful position that said, "Hey, you know what? We can do this now. You know what? This is mainstream." But this is what America was so complacent and blind to that this existed, that most people never even imagined to this day and age that something like this can be happening right now. We saw riots throughout this country. And most of those riots, we're looking at it from, the methods and incidents from the police, but really, these are people who finally said, listen, enough is enough. Because it goes from police-related issues to national issues. People are really scared at this point because I keep hearing people talk about the possibility of a civil war. So I'm like, listen, come on. We're still the United States of America. There's still some rationality. We have checks and balances to an extent to say, hey, listen, no matter how much we push these boundaries, we still got to realize that eye for eye will leave everybody blind.
Right. But these guys have openly said, like the Boogaloos and all those other groups, militias, they said that if Trump loses, that there will be civil war. They're saying that openly. They're saying that.
Yeah. And here's something that just I'm hoping that it's not true, but it's something that's I picked up just before this program, and it's on Twitter about Lindsey Graham. I don't know whether you've seen that.
I'm not on Twitter.
You know which one I'm talking about at the hearing today, and I missed it. I didn't have a chance to watch it, but he's talking to the new judge. New judge, and he says to her, they're talking about Brown versus Board of Education, and he uses the phrase "back in the good old days of segregation."
Exactly.
These people have always been here, but they never were empowered.
Exactly.
And everything they had to do, they did undercover what they did. The difference
Exactly.
now is they're out in the open. But this is still the Trump effect. If you go back a little in distant history and you read Machiavelli, the prince, and one of his dictates was keep an enemy at the door. And Trump started off with this when he began demonizing Mexicans. And that evolved into not just Mexicans, but also people of the Islamic faith, people who came from those countries, people who came from the S-hole countries.
Right.
This is all Machiavellian demonization, which allows you to coalesce people around a certain cause. And that's how you begin to form your base. You create an enemy, even when that group is not an enemy, and you maintain that. Keeping an enemy, there's always has to be, and it's somewhat juvenile. There has to be us against them. They are the threats. This is what Hitler did. He created an enemy of the Jews, and the people fell into that. And so when you think of how crazy that is, where actual citizens were going out and participating in abusing and killing Jews. And here in the United States, we had citizens going out and abusing and killing Latin Americans and Black people. This is recently. This is all recent. And this is all because of the leadership at the top. My boss used to always say, a rotten fish smells first from the top. And that's where you have to look. It's all about Donald Trump. He is catering to, and I looked at his demographic. I was doing some research for this. He caters to people who are undereducated. That is the predominance of his base. And recent studies have shown that that base is diminishing. They're still there, but they're diminishing. So, and if you go to the voting polls, as I did 2 days ago, it's obvious that a lot of people are angry. A lot of people are coming or are realizing what was created when 43 million people did not vote. So what you have here, if you remember, Ronald Reagan during his last year, he was mentally incapacitated. He was in the throes of Alzheimer's. But the people around him not only protected him, they protected the country. That is not the case with Donald Trump.
Wow. You know, I'm a gun enthusiast, Second Amendment guy to the heart, but not for the purpose of personal protection or protecting my property. You know, I'm a collector and I'm an avid shooting competitor. When I see gun sales go through the roof, I see ammunition shortages like I've never experienced in my lifetime. I see people arming themselves for Armageddon. Only thing that come to mind is the Purge movies. It's like people are actually preparing to wage war. And the crazy thing about it, they're preparing to fight over communities. Not to band together and fight off a common enemy that may try to invade the American continent and take away our quality of life, but to fight community by community each other. This scares me.
That's the danger of having a mentally deficient person in the White House.
This is where the checks and balances of power have to come in play.
He's killed that. He emasculated the Republican Party.
Wow.
So that was part of your checks and balances.
Well, what do you mean he emasculated the Republican Party?
In other words, they're gutless.
Oh,
they see what's going on. We have intelligent, college-educated men and women in the Republican Party who know that they're in positions of leadership in their states, and they know that this man is mentally deficient, but he is their means to their end.
Exactly.
And sadly, they, in doing so, they are betraying the United States of America.
Actually, not only they betraying, but when everything is said and done, at some point, Trump reign will end. And the first thing out of their mouth going to be like former Nazi soldiers and part of the inner circle. Well, I followed orders. I can't be held responsible. That was repeated over and over and over at the Nuremberg trials.
Wow.
I was just a simple soldier who followed orders. No, you was a major collaborator. Your enthusiasm to commit crimes against humanity not only were well documented, but you never imagined that you would have to pay for your crimes. You never imagined that you would suffer the consequences of your actions. More so, you were so blatantly arrogant that you felt that you were above the law, world law. We're not even going to bring in God's law. You felt you were above the world law. And as long as Adolf Hitler was in power and you was able to stand behind him and let him make the decision that you enthusiastically followed, that's where we at right now. We have a Mitch McConnell that has thoroughly submitted himself as Trump's right-hand man. No matter what evil you do, I will support and facilitate it. It's one thing to talk about political parties and say, well, you know what? That's politics. Everybody had their allies. You're supposed to stick with your own. But like Norm just said, we're borderline treason now because you're destroying a country, the very fabric of a country, and you're pitting American versus American. We reached the point now, the values of the Constitution, we the people, are no longer valid. That's the scary part. We the people are no longer valid. If this was a literary term, this would be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
You got decisions to make.
So I think about here they are trying to rush through a Supreme Court nominee who they know is going to, knock down the Affordable Care Act. He's going to reverse Roe versus Wade, and that's their whole point. I mean, they don't even have a plan. Republicans don't even have a health plan, but yet they're going to dismantle the one that we have.
This is true. It's this all, and I'm trying to be a little bit in the present, where I'm looking at the high voter turnout across the country, and this may well be an example of what we read in Paradise Lost by John Milton, where the devil was thrown out of heaven and those angels who supported him went right to hell with him. And it very well could be, if we have the type of intelligent public and electorate that I think we have, is that a lot of Trump's facilitators are going to be thrown out with him in November 3rd.
I hope so.
Well, unfortunately, the hope is right now, it's 50-50.
You think so? I thought the polls were, well, I'm not going to listen to the polls.
I voted today, and the average wait time was 2.5 to 3 hours in the county I live. Fortunately, I was smart enough to request the absentee ballot over a month ago. So, but after I watched the lines, I looked at the diversity of the people in the lines. I looked how determined people were, regardless of who they were voting for, but they were determined to vote.
Yes.
This has went from a democratic process to now a competition.
Wow.
To see who's going to get the power to be able to dominate the other.
Okay.
Normally, when you're going to vote, people talk, and a lot of times, people are civil, hey, regardless of who you're voting for. If you start paying attention to a lot of these voting lines now, and I understand covert keeps that distance between us, but people, there seem to be more animosity and anger than people standing in line. They're like, hey, everybody's like, it's election time. Let's go ahead and band together. We are American. Let's select the best leader and the best party possible. People are voting out of fear.
Oh.
That's what it looked like to me, out of fear. If I don't, will my quality of life or my life be at jeopardy at this point?
Okay.
Your life is in jeopardy now.
Wow. Yes.
Your life is in jeopardy now. I'm talking about Donald Trump. I won't say his name because we need to remember who and what he is. He is promoting this herd immunity. And I just heard a commentary on TV about that this afternoon on the news. And most people have no understanding what it is. And his base, they're talking about herd immunity. Rand Paul from Kentucky, he's talking about herd immunity. And what that means is when you break it all the way down, is that in this country, 20 million people would have to die before this country would achieve the herd immunity that they're talking about.
20 million.
20 million. There would have to be 200,000 people, 200 million people infected. Wow. And out of that 200 million, 10% are expected to die. Wow. This is what herd immunity is. This is what this president, this mentally ill president, is promoting. And you know what's ironic about this? Did you know that his son Barron supposedly just got over COVID-19?
I heard that, yes.
The chickens are really coming home to roost.
Right, they had 34 people in the White House who were affected. He's a super spreader.
Yes.
The chief of White House security is gravely ill, they said, in the hospital now. The chief of White House security is gravely ill.
That's sad.
And they say he knew beforehand that he still went out and he had some events, even though he knew he was positive. And then back in February, he knew that it was airborne back in February and lied and pretend like he didn't know until he had that, the interview with Bob Woodward. So he knew all along. That's part of his psychopathology.
But that goes back to your narcissism.
Exactly.
to the point where it's deadly, because he needs that adulation to the degree that even if he goes out and kills people, it's okay with him, because there's no empathy in this man.
Exactly. That's part of the narcissistic personality and the sociopathy. The narcissism and the sociopathy, those two, oh my goodness, he's a criminal. He's a con man. That's what he is.
In Nazi Germany, experienced an event in the 30s called a Night of the Long Knives. And that's where we are.
What's the Night of the Long Knives?
Yeah. That was
famous term. That was the turning point of Adolf Hitler submitting power, consolidating power, eliminating competition, taking away anybody like Trump is doing, who even remotely may be be able to check his reign of power, his rise. And
they assassinated his competition.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yes.
And the sad part about it is, we may not be physically assassinated, but we're very much, as Norm stated, we're silencing, we're censoring, we're eliminating anyone, and even within his own party, who even remotely may challenge where he's taking this country.
This is a question someone wants to know: the difference between psychology and psychopathology. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind and behavior. Psychopathology is abnormal behavior, which this president exhibits. So it's abnormal behavior, psychopathology. So that's what they wanted to know. So to the person who wrote in with that question, that's the difference.
Important to note.
He exhibits psychopathology, abnormal psychology.
I haven't heard this book promoted. I don't know whether you want to give the title again and who wrote it.
Yes, we got it right here. Let's see. This is The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump.
Wow.
How thick it is. It's very thick.
Wow. And
it's 37 authors. It's 37 psychiatrists and mental health experts who wrote chapters in here. So yeah, I ordered it through Amazon, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think probably you've heard that JAMA, the Medical Association, they just came out and criticized the government's policy on COVID-19.
Yes.
How dangerous the policy is, and they've never done anything like this.
Right. Yes. Yes. So
the information is out there. People need to pay attention, and of course, there are going to be many people who will not. There's still people, in spite of all that's happened, and I heard it on TV last night, that consider this all a hoax.
Yeah.
Which is dumbfounding.
Right.
Absolutely dumbfounding. But this is the type of mentality that allowed Adolf Hitler to do what he did with impunity. And Donald Trump, he's trying to emulate that same behavior.
Exactly.
And let me go ahead and say, we have several elected officials. Some have already been elected, but to me, two of the most dangerous in the state of Georgia right now.
I know who you're going to say, Vernon Jones.
No. Vernon Jones doesn't bother me.
Really?
Vernon
Okay.
Jones is nothing more than a pawn.
Okay, so who?
Aaron Handel, who's very much as mentally incompetent and as mentally dangerous as Donald Trump.
Okay.
And Kelly Loeffler.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with her. Oh yes.
Males. And, and one of the things I want to point out, we always think of the world events as some of the most greatest human atrocities in the world. Well, only a man could do that. No, women guided so much. Women, when they in that position and have that same mentality as an Adolf Hitler or Donald Trump, they are even better at creating atrocities. Why? Women think a lot more analytical than men do. Women cover every base. And when a woman who has an evil mind collaborate that with the ability and power to carry out whatever wants to be done, it is a power to be reckoned with.
Wow.
We have two female local candidates for political offices that may be just as dangerous as Donald Trump.
Well, I think you also have to look at Collins and Lindsey Graham, who have both sold their souls to Donald Trump in a most, an unmanly way. I hate to say this, but when you lose your manhood, when you make a statement that says, this is my word and you can count on it in 4 years, as Lindsey Graham did, and now with no shame, he completely reverses his position.
Exactly.
The truth is in front of you, as it was with Collins, who's also from Georgia. He's a male. And your truth is in front of you, and you sit there and vilify a lieutenant colonel who was wounded in combat in order to preserve Donald Trump in office at an impeachment hearing. That is not unmanly. That's inhumane. And these people, I hate to say it, but I must say it, need to be voted out. I have never in my life said that we should vote straight Democratic or vote straight Republican, because I think, number one, that type of voting is both lazy and ignorant, because then you're not looking at the persons, you're looking at some party illusion. But this election, the country needs to send a message. And it's scary. For me, it's personally scary to have an administration or our leadership be totally Democratic, because as we know, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right.
Checks and balances require that we have diversity in our government and in our legislatures. But what we have in our legislatures now is a total emasculation, a total abandonment of human decency, and that's all centered in the Republican Party.
Exactly.
But it's the Trump effect.
Yes. Something else that they mentioned in the book, they call Trump anxiety disorder. And what that happened. It was like the reaction to what happened with the whole election and the fact that he lost the popular vote by 3 million. And what they said, this led to an unprecedented level of post-election shock, grief, anxiety, disbelief, fear, frustration that affected about 50% of the population, is what they said, were affected by that.
And
I know that I woke up the next day crying.
Right.
Yeah.
And their anxieties became reality.
Yes,
4 years
exactly.
later, it became. I remember during this election when he won, that the riots that were taking place nationwide, people in disbelief, people upset, people with all kinds of mental traumas.
Exactly.
But you know, unfortunately, once again, we did not consistently demand accountability from our elected officials. We until as of late, you know, we had all of the police related incidents in COVID itself. Now we're in a position where, like, wow, how did we get to this point? How did we allow this to happen? Keep in mind, 4 short years. 4 short years. This country went from complacent to chaos.
Drinking the Kool-Aid. A lot of people drank it.
But I remember in my office after the election, I mean, I had all kind of reactions from patients. I had this one little elderly Caucasian female, as passive and calm as she wanted, as she had ever been. And after the election, the first thing she said to me, "I wish I could kill him." I was like, "What?" This is passive, most peaceful lady you'd ever meet. That's the first thing. "I wish I could kill him." I was shocked. I wish I could kill him.
Yeah. He's But this is an example of what happens when the public stops actually looking at a candidate, and you listen to, and Donald Trump is bad, and when I go with his facilitators, I really have to talk about Fox News.
Okay.
What comes out of Fox News is perceived by so many as truth, and it's dangerous. I mean,
have you ever watched Fox?
I've watched Fox because I want to see what they're talking about.
Okay.
Because as I would talk to a local politician several years ago, you have to know what the enemy is talking about and what their plan is. And when you don't do that, you do a disservice to yourself. And this Tucker Carlson, who has been sued by I forget who sued him, but they sued him for slander, sued him and Fox News for slander. And Fox News got out of it, cleared themselves because they said that what comes across in his show is not to be believed. So Fox News, they sort of abandoned him, but they still carry his programming. And he is totally against Dr. Fauci. He's called him the chief buffoon.
Really?
Yes. That was on May 13th, 2020.
Wow.
There's so many other things that come across on Fox News where they demonize anyone who speaks against Donald Trump, anyone who tries to verify, if we need verification at this time, that COVID-19 is a real and present danger to this country, and anyone who talks about remedies such as wearing masks, shutting down certain services, closing bars. They demonize these people. And there are millions of people who watch this program, and that for them, that program is their avenue to the truth. Donald Trump calls up on that station almost every morning.
Oh, he does? He calls?
Fox and Friends.
Really?
Almost every morning. He calls up there, and they give him carte blanche.
This is radio TV. It's radio.
This is television.
Oh, okay.
He has carte blanche to talk as long as he wants, without commercial. Whenever he calls up, they suspend commercials and they let him talk and ramble for as long as he wants. That's Fox News almost every morning.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
What time does that come on? I mean, I've never.
I think they come on around 7 in the morning, Fox and Friends.
Okay.
Yeah. It's this is not what news is supposed to be. But it's dangerous, and people are dying because of it. And you know, I think that's where the laughing has to stop. This man is not only mentally ill, he is killing people. He's responsible for people dying.
Yes.
And it's horrendous. There are people that I know who have died from COVID-19.
Same here. People
and
that didn't know.
It's sad, and it's alarming because these deaths, these 216,000 deaths, did not have to happen. And the people who are infected in the United States, people look at this as a cold. When you're over it, you're done. That's not true. There's residual damage that comes from being infected with this disease.
On the lungs, the heart, the brain. I mean,
Yes.
long-term effects. Yes. Wow. The thing is, and if he was already deranged before, since he's had the dexamethasone steroids, oh my God, he's gone off really off the chain since then.
And we forgot, and let's not dismiss the side effects from the steroids that he's taken. And some of the ridiculous statements that he's made since then in the past week and a half. Yeah, it would be funny if we're not so deadly. And it's us right here in the United States of America, and our emasculated government officials cannot do anything about it.
He's coming to Georgia on Friday. Did y'all know he's coming here on Friday?
Yes. Because Georgia, this is the first time in recent over 20 years that Georgia is in danger of going Democratic.
That's why when I posted on Facebook, this guy a few years ago made this song about hide your wife, hide your kids. So I posted,
yes.
You know what, people, seriously, don't be surprised if you start seeing modern day reprints of the Willie Lynch diaries. There's a possibility that, you know, hate is nothing new. And the doctrine, or shall I say the manifesto of hate, is truly a document that has stood the test of time. Don't be surprised if you see the Willie Lynch diaries with a modern day twist. That's what I feel we're going to at this point.
Can you say more about that? Can you say more about that?
Well, you know, on the most basic level, even with the Black Republican Party, they hosted a benefit several weeks ago, and it's a clear-cut divide and conquer type technique. Even amongst the Democratic Party, even amongst the racial lines, it's amazing how he has supporters.
Well, I mean, with Candace Owens, you know, she had the Blexit, and that's why she had all those people at the White House right while he was still probably infective, mostly brown people and Black people that they paid to come to D.C. to hear him. I mean,
hold on. They were paying people to come?
They paid them.
Hey. What was my invite?
They paid for the transportation, and they paid for their lodging.
What?
To be there on Saturday. Yes. I think it was 250 people of color.
Was it? I know it was a lot. I don't remember.
It was a lot. Yeah, but it was a lot. But they were packed like sardines.
Yes.
Kind of like slave ships, huh?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy. And it's sad that here in the 21st century, we have people of color who are comfortable allowing themselves to be used. And I mean, that's really being used to the max.
And not just uneducated, uncaring. We're talking pillars of the community, the business community.
Like Herman Cain.
Yes.
Educated Black people.
Let's not forget Herman Cain.
They got their person a mule.
Did they mention him at all at the RNC?
No.
Wow.
No.
Yeah, I heard Herman Cain wasn't gonna make that meeting.
Yeah.
But, I
Yeah.
mean, but they didn't even mention him at the RNC. So.
Yeah. Well, that's an embarrassment because that was a black man that he used. And that was a black man whose famous saying, I think I said this your last program, his famous saying on his radio program is, "We're not stupid." And here we have a grown man committing one of the most stupid acts of all, going to an indoor rally without a mask and skinning and grinning as much as he could, and now he's dead.
Did y'all see Saturday Night Live this past week?
I missed it, but I recorded it.
Oh my goodness! I gotta tell you that in the monologue, like part of they had like two flies. One was supposed to be Biden, but the other fly was Herman Cain. I even did a screenshot of his exactly what he said. This is what the fly who was Herman Cain was supposed to be reincarnated. He said, "These fools, Trump and Pence, killed me, man. They invited me to a rally and said everything was fine, Herman. I catch corona. Trump tells me everything's fine, Herman. The White House doctors check me out, tell me everything's fine, Herman. 3 days later, I'm gone. If you're watching this at home, don't trust this white devil about that Rona." I was like, whoa.
I have to watch that as soon as this is over.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I recorded it. That is something. Even 2 weeks ago, Chris Rock did a great monologue about what's going on with Donald Trump and the country, and it's.
Where was it? He did it on TV or where?
We did it on Saturday Night Live.
On
Saturday Night Live.
I taped that one with Megan Thee. I taped the show. I didn't see it.
Yeah. And one of his comments he made was, and Fox News replayed it and talked about it disparagingly, where he says, when they said that Donald Trump had COVID-19, he says, "Well, I feel for COVID-19."
That was my favorite part.
Yeah.
My sympathy, my condolences.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But when all jokes aside, boy, I've never seen a time in my lifetime where it's like, wow, do I need to gear up? Do I need to fortify my house? Do I need to be ready to, duke it out for my community, not just but for my community? Literally. This is it.
This is the danger. Going back to the Trump effect, I'm going to use that term. I like it.
Okay.
Where you have these militia groups out now walking around with AR-15s. Folks, this is not a joke. If this election becomes controversial, these people are going to be out on the streets. This is dangerous. I think these open carry laws are stupid. We are not in the 17 and 1800s in the wild, wild west. We live in a civilized society. There is absolutely no reason for a man to be walking down the street with an AR-15 or a shotgun.
Why?
That's a problem. To allow these people come to demonstrations, that's dangerous. And
they say it's your Second Amendment right.
I understand.
The right to carry and bear arms.
Here's the thing. The Second Amendment was created because the United States, they didn't have an army then, but they had to form militias, and they had no money. So they could not afford to buy arms for the soldiers. So they encouraged people to bring their own weapons. And prior to that, it was against the law for them to have weapons. So that Second Amendment was created so people could bear arms to defend the country. They didn't have an army then that could pay for weapons. We have an army now. This is the 21st century. The Army provides weapons to its soldiers, so they're not asking people to bring their own weapons. And we're stuck on this stupid Second Amendment that should have been repealed years ago, or at least revised, because it has no application in a modern society where people feel that they have a right to walk around with AR-15s in the street. That doesn't make any sense. I can see being armed to protect your home. I can see carrying a weapon, a pistol to protect yourself and having a license to do that. But an AR-15, do you realize the kill range of an AR-15?
No, what's the kill range?
The kill range is almost 3/4 of a mile.
What?
So if you miss your target, you can kill somebody that you can't see.
3/4 of a mile. Oh,
Yes, you can kill somebody that you can't even see.
wow.
Some of these weapons, these high caliber weapons, even what the police department uses. Now, and I'm going to go back to the lady, Miss Taylor, we just killed. You get hit with a 40 caliber bullet, you're going down. This is what has become standard issue for police officers. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have it, but understand, people, the damage that these bullets can do. I mean, when I came on, just before I retired, they were just going to 9mm as standard use. And now we're up to 40 caliber bullets. You get hit once or twice and you're down. So somebody who's getting shot 4, 5, and 6 times with a 40 caliber weapon, that's just an overkill. That's just ridiculous. But I get diverse because we're talking about mental illness.
That's a question though, to revise those laws, would they have to be at the state level to do that?
No, there has to, that's a federal law.
Federal, okay.
So the Constitution would have to be changed.
Okay.
And right now, the NRA is pouring so much money and has bought so many people in the Republican Party primarily, but also some Democrats, that they feel that they can keep that law in force and working because it makes big money for the gun industry.
But what about that state attorney general of New York? I thought she was trying to dismantle the NRA.
Correct. That's still in the progress. That's because of fraud and misuse of funds.
Like
Correct.
LaPierre. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Wow.
LaPierre, Mr. LaPierre. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't mean to go off on the Second Amendment, but this is all, right now, it's gotten out of hand.
But his supporters were out here touting that as their reason, rationale. You know, I saw somebody bought some military style weapons to a Disney World or something recently.
Don't know.
Yeah, to Disney World.
No.
Bought some military style.
I don't know.
Again, as I stated, we the people.
Yeah.
Everything begins with we the people. I don't know. I mean, I'm listening. This is one of those rare tapings where it's more advantageous for me to listen than to respond.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, I agree. Doctor, I think your first 5 minutes or so were just so profound and so informative.
And I haven't even finished reading the book, so I can't wait to see what else. That's just the sections that I read. It's like, how many pages? It is it's over 500 pages, this book, yeah. So, and I haven't finished it. I'm maybe like halfway through.
It's about a week's worth of reading for me.
Right, yeah, so I'm sure there's a whole lot more in the other half that I haven't even covered.
Yeah, I'm going to add that to my collection.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, here's the fact. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and say, what will future generations think about what is transpiring right now? Because at some point, this will be required reading in someone's political science class. Someone's police and public training, someone's world affairs, human relations. This will be required reading. How did we allow history to repeat itself after we already knew the consequences of the Third Reich.
And I think another thing that we need to realize, I kind of touched on this also, is how do we react after November 3rd? How does this country react after November 3rd? I think that's something that we all need to think about, because win or lose, I think there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
Donald Trump will be, even if he loses, he will be in office for another month, another 2 months,
To do more
and
damage.
he can do an awful lot of damage. I think that one of the first things he will do after November 3rd, win or lose, is he's going to get rid of Fauci.
Oh.
That's my feeling, because there's no consequences. If he loses, there's no consequence. If he wins, then he's going to get his own person to put in there. The head of the CDC will likely go, even though he's been an apologist for Trump more than he has been one who has been an advocate for the public.
You're talking about being castrated, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but this is what he wants to do. This is what he will do, and I think in those 2 months, he can do almost irreparable damage to this country. Keep in mind, this is an unchained, unbound, mentally ill person who has been given carte blanche to do and say whatever he wants.
Yes.
And with an emasculated Senate who's only focused on getting a judge in there to reverse Roe v. Wade and the Affordable Care Act, because those acts were put through by a black man.
Yes, yes, yes.
Say it like it is.
Yeah, yes.
One more thing I look at, Tennessee versus Garner, in terms of police reaction. You know, the protocols that were put in place from Supreme Court decisions many, many moons ago that truly marshaled in the modern police policy and procedures, I firmly believe he's going to militarize police in such a way where now it's like, if he gets the second term, it's going to be a pit bull type mentality. And again, right now, agencies are in a position where we're like, well, we have to change our tactics. Tactics are not being changed. Right now, it's almost like being patronizing. You're patronizing to see how this goes. Because if he gets another term, oh man, it's going to be like, we don't really have to answer anybody because the president is not going to allow us to be accountable for our actions. So even from a law enforcement point of view, this can be a very detrimental election if the wrong people put in positions have head of household in major agencies throughout the country.
Yeah.
You're telling them, the Justice Department is telling them, do what you gotta do what you want to do, because we back you fully.
But they pointed out to him that domestic terrorism is the #1 threat, and he's totally ignored it.
Correct. And he's never made a compassionate statement about the governor of Wisconsin, and we found out that the plot includes the governor of Virginia. He's never made a compassionate statement. He's never called these people up. He's never talked about how un-American those actions are, and by not talking about it, he is sanctioning it. And you still have other cells in this country that are ready to act. And this has never, ever happened in this country before. And it's happening now. And he is silent on the matter.
They are training. They are developing tactics. They are infiltrating police departments. They're infiltrating inner city neighborhoods. They're infiltrating political parties. Most importantly, what amazes me, how they're doing this in plain view. There's no more underground, secretive quotes and daggers. This is in plain view. We are now announcing ourselves, and to use a term that I used to hate to hear, but really start to ask, is this the beginning of a new world order? Are we seeing the rise of the Third Reich? Or at the South to say, the South shall rise again.
The fourth. Well, that I've always said that MAGA was a synonym for the South shall rise again. Make America great again. What are you talking about? Where are you going back to? Couple that with Lindsey Graham's statement today about let's go back to the good old days of segregation.
I think the KKK had a slogan similar to Make America Great. I can't remember what it was, but their slogan was similar to Make America Great, the KKK.
Well, if you look at the manifesto, right, that's been chronicled in Breitbart publications, and look at the Republican manifesto for 2016, they're almost word for word. They're almost word for word.
Republican and
the Republican platform in 2016 mirrored that of the extreme right, as recorded in Breitbart. I forget the name of that organization, but extreme rights. People forget about the John Birch Society, which still is in existence today, has never stopped being. And these John Birch people are in government. In fact, we had one of our senators here in Georgia who was honored at a hotel where I worked in Duluth by the John Birch Society. And one of their rules was they told the hotel they didn't want anyone working this banquet who was an immigrant or who they had to be white.
What?
They had to be born in America. And this was a Georgia senator.
What
Yes.
senator was this?
He's not in office now.
Oh.
He was voted out, I guess.
Can you tell me his name? I'm just curious.
I forget his name. It begins with a B.
Not Braun. Is it Braun?
No.
Okay.
If I hear it, I know it.
Okay.
But this happened in 2001, 2002.
And the hotel went along with it?
Yes.
Whoa.
Which angered the people. The hotel right now no longer exists. It was bought out by another company, but it was in Duluth, and I worked there, and the entire staff was angry. And it was very quiet. Wow. They weren't allowed, unlike other times, they weren't allowed to post any signs about this event. It was a banquet honoring this senator, and he's still alive, but he was a John Bircher. And you have a lot of throughout this country, I am sure, who are Republicans, who are John Birchers, but they're not
and
going
KKK.
Exactly.
Well, don't forget the NKs.
Yeah.
All right now.
Yeah. Well, you remember in Virginia, you had the Grand Wizard as a state senator. He was the longest sitting senator
Which senator
so far. Byrd.
Oh, Byrd.
Senator Byrd.
Okay.
He just died, was it about 2-3 years ago? But he served in the Senate for 50-something years.
Wow.
But he was a Grand Wizard in the KKK.
You know what I found amazing?
What?
As we're having this conversation, I'm saying to myself, Virginia, we know it took place in Charlottesville, birthplace of Robert E. Lee. Maryland, one of the most affluent Black communities in Prince George's County. Atlanta, Georgia, again, have a fluent, growing Black population. You look at Miami, Alabama, all these places. You know, what amazes me with my people, our people, we have become so distant from the throes of segregation that majority of us never saw this coming. And some still don't really understand what's happening, because this is where the sheep mentality comes from. Most of them are following those who are telling you this versus really taking the time to self-educate. And what I'm saying in the long run, we're in a situation now where do we fully understand what's taking place in this country and the possibility of the potential for violence that may interrupt? I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see neighbor versus neighbor, community versus community, person is person. This is very real. For the first time in my life, there's a possibility of armed conflict. At what point do we shut it down and say, hey, we're not going to allow this to happen? My slogan for this period and for the students is going to still be we the people. We the people got to stand up in unity and say, hey, this is okay. The demonstrations, the marching, and all the rhetoric that came into this, fine. But do we not see the potential of how this can get even worse? You know, we got a 17-year-old with an AR-15 who killed 2 people, and we still trying to sit there and say the law clearly states you should not be in possession of these weapons under the age of 21.
Yes. And they're still trying to extradite him from Illinois to Wisconsin.
I mean, it's just...
He didn't show up for his hearing. And to me, I don't understand how he can just not show up and they don't go and get him.
Well, you know, if you waiver your first hearing, that pretty much, you know, smart lawyers, and the question you'd be asking, who's bankrolling his defense?
Oh, there are different organizations. Yeah, there are different organizations that are bankrolling him.
Yeah, so, you know, like, you got to really start asking yourself, who's bankrolling all these individuals?
People are bankrolling him, yeah.
So, and that means there's a support system that's already in place, that's already prepared to not only bankroll whatever legal actions you may have, but now finance any offensive actions you're going to take, aka armed militias, resistance group, right-wing extremists. It's like, listen, we got money, we got position, we got equipment, we got everything standing by to get the show on the road. That's scary to me.
It is very scary.
And until it's verbally put out there, everybody keeps forgetting. What if it's now damn near reality? Any day now, we can have an active shooter situation that's very much racist, but in anywhere in this country, we've already seen shootings on an unprecedented level. The murders, regardless of what demographics, have been constant night after night. People are shooting first, and they don't even bother to ask questions. You shooting because you can. Have you ever seen such a time with lawlessness? We have literally went back to the Wild Wild West. You can't even go on Walmart without seeing somebody walking around with a gun exposed. Like, man, this is Walmart.
As I said, recently someone was at Disney World with some military weapons. I just saw on Facebook today, so I don't know the details of it.
So we're seeing people who think, and here's the funny thing is, when you walk in openly armed like that, I don't care what anybody tells you, well, you know, protect myself, and you're not protecting, you're intimidating. I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, green, Asian, you're intimidating. You're looking for something. You wish somebody would try you.
Exactly.
Back where I come from, we used to have a term, we wanted to get into something, I wish a mofo would. You know what I mean? That's where we at. You want somebody to try you to justify you doing, you now unloading.
Here's the consequence from criminals. If you're a criminal and you walk into an establishment and your intent is to go hold that place up or to rob that place, and you walk in there and you see a person armed, guess who you shoot first?
That's it.
You don't even ask the question.
There you go. Now they got
so walking around armed, visibly armed, only makes you the first target. You know, it's like in the Army, when you go out on patrol, they tell you the first thing that the enemy looks for is to get the guy with the machine gun. You know, you become the first target. So now you're in a civilian atmosphere and you're the guy in there with the gun. Well, if I'm the crook, you're the first person I shoot.
Absolutely.
You get neutralized. Everything else is easy.
In my years in law enforcement, the only time you ever see a firearm on me is when I'm on duty in a Class A uniform, which is patrol uniform. That's the only time you're going to see me, because on my own personal time, working plain clothes detail, I developed the art of carrying concealed firearm. To the day, sometimes I lose my gun on me. I know I got one, because no one needs to know that I'm armed.
Right.
First of all, whether I'm on my personal time or I'm working a detail or something, just still, the whole part of me being effective in what I do is for you to be the last person that you think would be a threat if you're a bad guy.
Right.
I count on the element of surprise to win this battle. It's not going to be we're going to do 10 paces from each other, turn around, and whoever get off the best shot. It doesn't work for me. I engage when it's 9% or better in my favor. I engage. That's the rule of engagement for me personally and professionally. It has to be to my advantage unconditionally. I don't take chances, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be a 50-50. A 50-50 is not an equal equation, and is certainly not reason to engage. 90% or better, the element of surprise, I'm going to walk home at the end of this incident. Guaranteed. There's only one person telling a story, so you don't have to worry about taking all these different statements. I'm just going to give you mine. I'm just going to be done with it. We the people. Man, we the people. Because right now, is there's ever a time that we the people have to not just go by what we heard, but be prepared to go one step further and say, I really have to take the time to understand what's going on around me. Covert is the best distraction about what is really the real fear right now. We got the possibility of armed conflict that none of us ever think you'll see in this day and age in these United States of America.
Trump effect.
Yep. I guess I'm SOL.
I keep telling you, get a gun, doc. Slingshot, BB gun, crossbow.
Yeah, these people in my subdivision, they're ready.
And if you don't want to do that, get you some nice, comfortable track shoes. Great ankle support that, when you start running, you're going to slip and fall.
And some barricade myself in the house then.
Yeah, but we all have a responsibility for preventing what everyone is worried about. We all have a responsibility to step up and say, listen, I'm not going to support this eye for eye, regardless of what party I'm aligned with. This is absolutely crazy at this point. There's not going to be any justifiable homicide just because of who you support politically. It's still murder. And eventually it may become genocide if we fail to unite and stop a common threat.
Ooh, that's heavy. Ooh, that's heavy.
Well, I know we got to rush, but Paul reminded me of something, and some things that are in my book. So I'll close out my part by saying, when it comes to being abused by the government, we the people. When it comes to being shot for no reason, we the people. When it comes to being arrested under false charges, as I had in my book, it's we the people. And to turn this thing around in this country, we have to be the people. We have to be united. That's the way it's going to get turned around. That's the way we're going to get a mentally ill person. And he needs help. But he cannot be the leader of our country, the leader of the free world. And when I see the turnout and the complexion of the turnout that I saw on Monday, and that I'm seeing on TV on Tuesday, and even today, it lets me know that we are the people who are going to turn this around.
Exactly, because it said this profound danger won't cease until he's no longer in office. I saw a statistic, 10 million people have voted already. 10 million have already voted.
Yes.
10 million. It beats
Yes.
like any other record. So I want to second that and encourage everybody to get out to vote. Everyone. You know, take someone with you. I know what you're saying about not whining about waiting, but yeah, it's very important. It's very important.
Thank you.
Wow, this has been a very amazing and very powerful show. Thank you to our listening audience. Thank you to our host and our guest host. And we are going to continue this in 2 weeks on the 28th. And we're going to do part 2 of this, the psychology behind Trump and Trump supporters. So we encourage everybody to listen in. So that will be October 28th, 6 p.m. And we're going to continue this. And we will focus on the psychology behind his supporters. So that should be a further interesting show. So again, thank everyone for tuning in. We look forward to you joining us in 2 weeks. You've been listening to Mind Matters on the WCEG Network, which is part of the Worldwide Empowerment Group. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.